Hello everyone, this is your teacher, the Royal Fish here, and today I'll be teaching you the basic interface of Blender. Now, let's start. So, you'll probably open up to this scene. There's a camera, cube, and light. What I first want you to notice is these panels. This is where you'll be spending most of your time on. This is called the viewport. This is called the outliner. It will show you everything inside your scene. So let's say I add a circle. As you can see, it just shows up that there's a circle. This is the properties. It does quite a few things actually. Yeah, there's materials. There's quite a few things. Data properties, constraints. You can add quite a few things. And then there's a timeline where you can see your keyframes. Alright, that was a lot of information to take in, so just replay the video if you need to. Now then, let's begin with going into the camera, because that's all animation and pretty much modeling is also about. You need to see the character. So yeah, so let's go into the camera by pressing number pad 0. And then, as you can see, the camera is focused on the cube. Now, what I want you to do, why is my chair so squeaky? What I want you to do is move around by pressing Shift tilde, which is right next to the 1 on the very top. And you can see, wow, it moves very, very slow. So, to up the speed, improve the speed, what you do is you scroll on your wheel. When you scroll up, as you can see, it gets faster. When you scroll down, it gets slower. Got that? Nice. Okay, and let's get out of the camera by pressing 0 again. Now, let's start with basic hotkeys. Click on an object, any object, press X, and you will delete an object. Awesome. Let's say you want to add another object in. You press Shift A, and then you can choose whatever you want. You'll get this menu. There are quite a few options, but for now, let's just stick with Mesh, Light, Camera. I think those are pretty self-explanatory, except to Mesh. Mesh, basically, you can add in basic, I know how to say this in Chinese, I forgot English. Shapes, there we go, shapes. You can add in basic shapes, such as planes, cubes, circles, UV sphere, icosphere, cylinder, cone, torus, grid, and then there's this monkey. Don't care about that right now. There's landscape, which is an add-on, but you can ignore that for now. This is usually what you will get. So let's add in a cube. As you can see, it adds in a cube. Let's say you want to move that cube around. You press G, and then you can move. Boom. You might say, hey, Rollfish, how do you move it on a specific axis? Or how do you make it so that's very accurate? Good question. You can press X to move on the X, Y to move on the Y, Z to work on the Z. Move on the Z. Alright, cool. And now here's a shortcut that I actually learned very accidentally. You can press G, and then you can press middle mouse, and if you line it up on the axis that you want to move it on, it will move exactly right there. So you don't have to press X, Y, and Z all the time. So as I, hold on, let me get on the X-axis. There we go. Sorry, I get very angry a lot of times. Alright, got that? Nice. So, let's say it moves all the way over there, and you want it back over here. Well, to its original position. What you will do is press Alt-G. And as you can see, it says clear location. So, I can move it anywhere. Alt-G, clear location. Oof, my computer fans are dying. That's awesome. Now, let's start with something else. Let's say you want to do rotation. You can press R and you can rotate. Now, a lot of the teachers here probably prefer the rotation method. I actually prefer using this, and it will kind of give you those. It's a gizmo that will assist you with rotation. I love it because it's very much more simplified, as you can see. But I don't know. Some other teachers might like it another way. Now, let's get with one more function to help reshape. I mean, not reshape, but mess with a mesh. Mess with a mesh. Yeah. You can scale it by pressing S, and that will scale it. Now let's say you want to scale it on a specific axis. Do you remember what I said before about moving on the X, Y, Z? I mean, Z, I don't know which one you prefer. Yeah, basically you can press X to scale on the X, Z to scale on the Z, Y to scale on the Y. And nice. What you can also do is you can scale on 2 axes. Let me see if I can get this to work. I can't. Alright, well, I'll save that for another video. Now, let's say you want to do animation also. What you would do is you press I, location, rotation, scale, and then to another frame, you can move this elsewhere, and boom. Location, rotation, scale. As you can see, it moves. Let's say you don't want to continuously move this line or counter, I don't really know what you guys call it. What you can do is press spacebar, or you can press this. I prefer spacebar. I don't really like moving my mouse that much. I'm a pretty lazy person in general, as you can probably tell from these tutorials. My chair is squeaky again. But yeah. Alright. That's about it for basic things. Let's start talking about the workspaces. So there's the layout, modeling, sculpting, UV editing, texture paint, shading, animation, rendering, compositing, scripting. Layout, you basically lay out the scene. Modeling, pretty self-explanatory. You just model things. Sculpting, it's a lot like modeling, but instead it's you sculpt. So yeah. UV editing, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not the best at UV editing or explaining it, so I'll leave that for another teacher. But basically, you can take an image and then you can project it across the mesh. Texture paint, I've never messed with this one before. This was way too much for me. Shading, this is where you can create a material or color or something for a mesh. So let's say I want to paint it green. As you can see, it turns green. There are so many nodes that you can learn about. I'm not the best with them. The teacher of Vortex is much better. But yeah, this will be covered in future lessons. There's animation, pretty self-explanatory. There's rendering. This will basically show you the render. Compositing. This one is a little hard to explain, but it's kind of like a shader for the whole entire animation. What do I mean by that is that it'll basically make the animation look more bright, vivid, or dark, or a more dark mood. You can basically change the scene so that it looks how you want it to look. You can obviously do it with a lot of lights, but compositing sometimes is much better than adding a bunch of lights. And then there's scripting. This one is just pure hatred. I don't know why some of my colleagues like this. I learned it. It was terrible for me, but for some reason I still do it. Standing pad. Another teacher is much better at this. So yeah. I think that is about it. One more thing I guess I could add is that there's something called auto keyframing. And this will basically let you set keyframes by yourself. Well, not by yourself, automatically. So that you don't have to press I the whole entire time. So let's delete this keyframe. Let's go to frame 27. Switch on auto keyframe. Let's move it over here. And boom. I didn't even have to press I. And it automatically set that keyframe. Now there are some things to watch out for, such as say you want to move something and you forget that you have auto keyframe on. It's terrible. It's yeah, there are some troubles that will happen, but for the most part, this is a very useful tool. Now then, let's get back into the camera. Remember what I told you. Press 0, and you can see the camera. And then shift tilde, move around. Nice. Now let's render this scene. I will put the light over here. Press F11 to render. Blender doesn't want to work with me. That's fine with me. But yes, usually that is what would happen. You press F11 and it will show you a render of what you did. I have never had this happen before to me. Well, I have. I fixed it, but I don't really remember how I fixed it. But yeah, I think that covers pretty much the basics. One more thing. If you want to move the 3D cursor, you can press Shift right click and this will move the 3D cursor. What happens is that when you do that, it will change, well, it does quite a few things actually, but for now we'll just talk about how it changes where a mesh will spawn. So as you can see, Shift A, it will change where the mesh will spawn. And there we go, guys. I think this is the first lesson complete. There's Eevee, Cycles, those are render engines. Don't worry about Workbench. I don't really use that much. Neither does quite a few people. Unless you're a modeler. But there's Eevee, Cycles. These are the most important ones. Eevee has less detail. Cycles has much more detail. There is the device, CPU, and GPU compute. There's the render, the samples. There's the viewport samples. When I press this, it will render for a while. And then there's the denoiser, optics. I'm using a different computer right now, so I'm able to have this option. But on my normal laptop, I would not have this option. That's about it. This lesson is quite long. I apologize. I'm sorry if you don't understand my English or it's a little basic. I'm not the best at English, but yeah. There we go, guys. Happy blending.